A long time ago, I lived on the water and it was very clean, and I didn't realize how much of a problem it was. Now I come back and I see the things that we're doing and I see the problems, and as a result, not only have I become more aware, but I want to do more.
There's a delicate balance between land and water, between humans and the oceans that surround them. The state of Maryland, bounded on the east by the Atlantic Ocean and nearly split in two by the Chesapeake Bay, has always had close ties to the water. The Chesapeake Bay is America's greatest estuary. Like an enormous sink, fresh water from over 150 rivers and streams mixes with the salt water from the ocean. Natural nutrients, which are washed from the land, flow down the rivers into the bay, feeding plants and algae, which provide an excellent food source and create a perfect environment for thousands of living things. Birds like the blue heron and geese and ducks like to feed in the marshes along its shores. The bald eagle has made its home on the bay, with one of the largest populations in the USA living along its shores. The brackish mix of fresh and salt water creates a nursery for fish that spawn in the upland rivers and go on to live in the ocean as adults. Making a more permanent home on the bay are the oysters, clams, and crabs that live along the bottom. And this beautiful body of water is a good habitat for humankind, too. It offers a pathway for trade, a source of recreation, and a livelihood for those who farm its waters. From the air, the bay looks perfectly healthy, but those who depend on the water to make a living can tell a different story. The watermen are our best gauge of the bay's well-being.
It's getting harder and harder all the time to make a living on the water.
The bay's in bad shape. It ain't in good shape at all, and if it keeps up, it ain't gonna be no way to make a living on here for me or anybody in the future who wants to.
Well, saving the bay is, I think, very important. When the bay was found, it was full of life. Everything was in abundance. And after a while, during the last 20 years, everything's been going down. Fishermen are losing their money because the fish are not coming into the areas. And the life is slowly dwindling in the bay, and I wish to save it.
We need to be aware that there are a lot of pollutants that run into the bay, and we need to keep it clean for future generations because it is a way of life for a lot of people.
To understand, we have to learn about the very makeup of the bay. The bay is not touched solely by those who live on its shores. People in Baltimore City touch the bay. Folks in Cumberland influence the bay. And even what people do in Pennsylvania, Delaware, New York, and Virginia will be felt in the Chesapeake Bay. The rain and snow that falls onto the 64,000 square miles of the Chesapeake watershed drains into streams and springs that empty into rivers like the Susquehanna and the Potomac. The rivers carry their fresh water and the natural nutrients in it all the way to the bay. In the beginning, the only waterway travelers might have been a waterfowl, fish, or a leaf. But with the increased settlement of the land and the growth of industry came other problems. For many years, manufacturers were allowed to dump their toxic wastes directly into the water. These pollutants were carried in the rivers and streams to the bay, upsetting its delicate balance. But many companies have been making changes to improve the problems. Cooperation among the states in the watershed area and strict new laws have reduced much of this pollution. People all over Maryland are rallying to protect the bay. These citizens are from Anne Arundel County. They're keeping a watchful eye on the West River to ensure that water quality remains high.
We're learning about the temperature of the water, what's in the water, what kind of animals and plants, the salinity, how much pollution's in the water, what color it is, things like that.
What better way to learn about the bay than to get out on it? We are measuring the pH of the water, the amount of oxygen in the water, and how salty it is. Do some life form investigation, look at the bottom sediment and see how muddy it is and what it smells like. And we might stop and pull up one of our traps to see what kind of life forms have been sampled in the trap.
Okay, well, we got an eel pod here. And does anybody see where the eel is?
There's eels.
Show me where the jellyfish is.
Right here.
Right there?
It's not too late to start now. We need to start early with this next generation, with all the environmental problems that we do have.
Yeah, I think it's very important that everybody joins together, because if everybody chips in just a little, it'll help a whole lot.
Even though pollutants from the factories may be declining, there is another problem that has come with the increasing population. The bay is suffocating. It's dying from too many man-made nutrients. More and more people are learning how having too many nutrients in the water is disturbing the natural balance of the bay.
The two main pollutants of the Chesapeake Bay, the two main pollutants are nutrients, okay? That's like fertilizer, and dirt. The two main pollutants of the Chesapeake Bay. Now, you walk by a brick building there, and that's a sewage pumping station. Now, several times in the past, that pumping station, the motors are broken down. And when the pumps broke down, raw sewage went right in the Gunpowder River, millions of gallons. And when that happens, that sewage is plant food, and it goes out to the Chesapeake Bay. And plant food causes algae to grow. That's the number one problem with the Chesapeake Bay. Okay? So there's a problem that can be in our neighborhoods. It can come from fertilizer washing off from our lawns or farmers' fields. All those things add nutrients to water, and the nutrients are carried to the Chesapeake Bay and cause algae to grow. And what they found in the Chesapeake Bay was the things called submerged aquatic vegetation. Okay? So nutrients are a problem.
But the trouble doesn't end here. This natural process uses up a lot of the oxygen in the water. Without oxygen, the sea life that lives on the bottom of the bay smothers and dies. Clams and oysters are in the greatest danger because they aren't able to pick up and move to a healthier area. How can this dangerous tide be turned? There are many things that can be done. In Prince George's County, students are learning smarter farming practices. Students learn these techniques at Claggett Farm.
What happens on the day on the farm is the kids get here. We usually do a little introduction in our barn. We have a hay bale set up in a classroom type of area, and tell them what's wrong with the bay, what are the problems, what's right with the bay, what's important about the bay.
Plowing, excellent. And that leaves the dirt what?
Loose.
Yeah, it leaves it real loose. And when it rains, what happens to that dirt? Washes away. Okay, what else do people put a lot of into the water? Yes?
The fertilizer.
Fertilizer. What are our sources of fertilizer? Huh? Farms. We put fertilizer on the farms. When you live on a farm in the morning and you get up, what do you have to do? You gotta do your farm chores, don't you? All right, so we're gonna go do our farm chores, okay?
Once we get over to the animals, we tend to split them up and have them do their farm chores to get a feeling of what it's like to be a farmer, what our farmer's doing. Then we tend to come back across the farm. We'll look at the contour strips and ask what we are doing with our contour strips to help the erosion problem. Talk about the grass acting as a filter and catching the dirt as it comes off of the fields that are planted in corn, why the corn rows are planted sideways on the hill instead of straight up and down the hill. When we come back across the farm, usually we'll head over straight to the runoff plots.
Okay, where's the dirt people? Okay, where did this come from? You got it from the hill. Yeah, did it come from the middle of the field?
It came from the field.
It came from the field. And it took how long for the water?
2 seconds.
Okay, how about in the woods there?
Oh, a minute and 30 seconds.
Okay. Why do you think in that field it only took 2 seconds? How about this guy right here?
It didn't have a lot of water and it was really dry.
Really dry, all right. How about the color? Why is there a difference in color?
Because there's more moisture in here than there is in here.
Okay, I'd buy that. There's more moisture. Would that make a difference in terms of soaking up the dirt?
What?
Yeah, because if it already has a lot of water in it, it doesn't want any more.
Yeah, it's like a wet sponge. Exactly.
There's no question that the kids are very excited when they get out here and ready to go. And the hope here is to educate kids about the problems, and then when they're decision makers, they'll be conscious of it. It's important to give them ideas of what they can do to help the bay, send them home with some ideas, and not feel frustrated that we have this problem now. There's nothing that they can do about it, when there's a lot we can all do in our personal lifestyle to help the bay and the environment in general.
A growing population also means that towns and houses have to be built. To make way for this growth, trees have to be taken down. But trees are an important factor in keeping everything working properly. When trees are removed from the land is left unprotected. Rain quickly erodes the earth, and along with it washes chemicals and other pollutants into streams and rivers, disrupting the natural balance of the bay, harming and in some cases killing living creatures and valuable plant life. But planting trees as buffer zones along waterways can help block nutrients and soil from reaching the bay. In Baltimore City and rural areas, groups are planting trees.
It makes me feel good to do this because I know I'm helping the land be preserved and I'm helping animals, and it just makes me feel good.
The growth of the towns and eventually the suburbs has been a boon in the construction business. But with that windfall comes added responsibility. In some cases, builders have not taken their responsibility for protecting the watershed seriously. That's why this group of students from Baltimore County is helping to monitor construction sites. They know that the health of their own waterways will lead to a healthy bay.
When it rains, the rainwater washes right across those construction sites, carries a big load of dirt right down the stream, right out to the Gunpowder River, and finally to the bay. Okay, so that sediment's a real problem. It smothers fish eggs. It gets in the gills of young fish. It stops photosynthesis because it clouds the water. But that's something that you and I can be involved with that problem, because you can report problems at construction sites. You know, they can be corrected. The problems there can be corrected.
Basically what we're testing for today is dissolved oxygen to find out if the fish can breathe in the water, carbon dioxide, which will give us an idea of how much algae are in the water, a bacteria tester, which will tell us what kind of bacteria are in the water. If it's the kind from the sewage, then we know where the pollution is coming from. And a couple of tests on nitrates to find out how much pollution is coming from sources like acid rain. I want to do more. Like, I go out on my own time and check out construction sites around my home personally. I now contribute to the nonprofit organizations like Save Our Streams, and lots of people in my class are just generally more aware. And not only do we stop things, but we don't do things ourselves. Like normally when you would just toss a can out of a car, we now realize the impact, and we don't do it anymore because we know the problems it causes.
The people of Dorchester County in Maryland have made their living off the bay for centuries. They know the importance of caring for our precious resources. The next generation of Dorchester County dwellers is very interested in keeping the bay clean and healthy.
ChestNet is basically a network of the 9 counties on the Eastern Shore that monitor different sites all over the Chesapeake Bay. And once they have their data, they send it to us. We type the data on the database. We'll report on it in the newsletter. And Riverwatch is the name of the newsletter. Other people that get the newsletter, besides people that work for the government, would be like environmentalists that work at Horn Point in Cambridge and other environmental education facilities around the Eastern Shore. That board over there has everything that we need when we're presenting to people. The dots on the map are where sites are, and it just shows the people where we test. Today there were 4 samples of water brought in from different sites all over Cambridge, some freshwater and some saltwater. And what we're doing right now is testing different levels of like salinity and nutrients. And then we record the results and we put them on a big database.
I love doing these tests because they teach me new things on what type of shape the bay is in and how to do other tests that I've never seen before. Well, I care about it because I like going out on the water and I like fishing and crabbing, and I'd like to know what's going on down underneath the water and what's going on in the water.
Everybody thinks that the kids at Macy's Lane, well, they're doing their part. We don't have to do anything. But everybody in Maryland and on the Eastern Shore, they all have to contribute to helping the bay. They have to see that not as much stuff gets dumped into the bay, and they've just got to think what they do before they do it.
There's a lot that you, the individual, can do. For a healthy lawn, use just the right amount of fertilizers. Too much fertilizer puts excess nutrients into the bay. Plant trees and bushes in your yard. They help stop erosion by keeping natural nutrients in the soil. Pick up trash. If a six-pack plastic ring gets into the bay, it can be a deadly trap for ducks, fish, and other wildlife. Motor oil or antifreeze from cars are toxic. Don't let them get into sewers or the earth. Collect them in a bucket and take them to a center that will dispose of them properly. Latex and oil-based paints are toxic. Water-based paints are less harmful to the bay. If you have to throw oil-based paint away, stuff with newspaper to absorb the paint and then seal them tightly so it won't leak. Batteries can harm the bay because their toxic metals and acids can leak into the groundwater. Use rechargeable batteries or take your batteries to your local hazardous waste center. People all over the state and the Chesapeake region realize the importance of the bay in their lives and are doing their share to save it. The bay belongs to all of us, and all of us belong to the bay.
I heard some bayside planning being made the other day. They say there's lots of condos being built around the bay. But every time we clear the land, pollution's on its way. And it adds to all the damage on the bay that we all love. Hey, all you citizens, don't turn your heads away. Don't pass the buck to anyone. We have to stand and fight for what we know is right. It's too late when everything we love has died. Morning on the Chesapeake, the air is damp and chill, and I hear a mallard calling, and it makes my spirit thrill. I watch a lonely oyster jack go out to rake or fill, and it makes me want to fight and help the bay that we all